What area does the riding of Windsor Tecumseh Lakeshore cover?
Now, in the last election, we were known as Windsor Tecumseh, and our boundary, our eastward boundary, used to end at the Manning Road. Now it goes right through to the Puce River. So we're Windsor Tecumseh Lakeshore, and filming this in Tecumseh, I'm halfway through between both boundaries. And interestingly enough, in the riding of Windsor Tecumseh, we haven't had a Conservative Member of Parliament for 94 years. July 1930 was the last chap that we had in, and I think I'm right in saying that his name was Charles Ducharme Morand, and I'm sure that he served this area with distinction, but we haven't seen a Conservative MP since.
Is Windsor still the automotive capital of Canada?
There was a time where Windsor was the automotive capital of Canada, but when we look at all of the plants that have gone, just to name a few, Kelsey Hayes, Kendam, the GM transmission plant, and you know that GM transmission plant made the finest 5-speed seamless transmission, not only in North America but in the world. And now if you drive up Walker Road and look to your left, there's not one brick left on top of another. And then we had the trim plant on Lozon, and the trim plant, how those women wept when it had closed down. And when they were interviewed, they said, you know, I've been in here all my working life, and my mother was in here before me, and it's gone, it's all gone. And so under the legacy of the political leadership of the Liberals for 94 years and the NDP, we are a shadow of our former self. And what I would like to do is I'd like to bring that back.
What's your work background and experience?
I've spent my whole life in public service. I'm a veteran. At the age of 15, I left a weeping mother on my doorstep and went off and joined the British Royal Navy. At the age of 16, I was on my first frontline NATO warship as part of the guns crew. And my government, believe it or not, at 16, issued me with 600 cigarettes a month as a 16-year-old. Can you believe that? That was my tobacco ration. It was part of my pay. And at 18, then it was a third of a pint of rum a day. So we grew up fast in those days. My boyhood was effectively, it was ended at the age of 15, because I put on a man's uniform, and from that moment on I was a man, I wasn't a boy anymore. It was the Cold War. I spent a lot of time in the North Atlantic on a British warship where the waves, believe it or not, the waves were higher than the mainmast, and we were chasing Russian submarines around the North Atlantic. After coming out of the service, I was very pleased to actually go back in the Royal Naval Dockyard as a civilian worker, and then I was very, very proud to be putting on a pair of overalls and doing a job with a union card in my back pocket. So I know what it's like to be a union member. I'm very proud of that. This was working on the warships that I'd previously served on, and it was painting, and it was insulation work and stuff like that, right down in the depths of the ship. And working, I can remember working on the aircraft carrier HMS Ark Royal, plus like numerous other warships.
Our national budget is in a mess. Do you have a good understanding of dealing with money?
I came out of the Navy and I went back into the dockyard work, and it wasn't very long before I went in the financial services industry. And that's where I learned about money and how it works, and all the investment side of things, and economics. Well, my time in the financial services industry has been crucial, because I started off in sales and then went into management and then went into senior management. So as a salesperson, I'm dealing with the people, the public, generating trust. As a manager, I'm managing other salespeople and developing them, because I believe management is about developing other people, developing them to generate the trust with their people and do a good job for them. And then in senior management, I'm now managing managers who are managing salespeople. So I've built teams before, and as an MP, if I get the candidacy, I'm going to have to build a team.
Can we trust you? Canadians are tired of untrustworthy politicians.
there is an awful lot of people locally, Windsor Tecumseh Lakeshore, who have entrusted me with their life savings. And I don't treat them any differently than if they were a member of my own family. So I have a long history of managing other people's money, OPM, other people's money, and doing it to such a point where I keep people informed about how it's doing. I want to make sure that they can go online at any time and 24/7 and have a look at it, and they can see how it's doing, keeping in touch with them. And as a result of that, over the 30 years, I've been getting referrals, and like, oh, you've got to go and see my brother, or you've got to go and see like my son, or whatever, he's just graduated. And I would take that experience and that mindset of managing other people's money with me into Parliament, because I am absolutely cognizant of the fact that that is not my money.
What's your views on climate change, the carbon tax, and other government high tax rates?
When I point this out to the people that don't know it, we're even paying tax on tax. If you look at your hydro bill, you will see your bill, which includes carbon tax, and then you will see the HST that's applied to that. And so therefore the HST is applied to carbon tax, which makes it a tax on top of a tax. Now there's a reason why the government is doing this. And the reason is because as a government, they are $1.4 trillion in debt. And it's you that's got to pay it back, not them. $1.4 trillion. And our interest-only payments, without paying a dime off the principal, just in interest, is $50 billion a year, which is nearly almost $1 billion a week they got to find just to service the interest. Otherwise, we fall into the abyss of being a third world country, and don't even think that it can't happen here, because it certainly can. And so that's why this government needs every dime it can squeeze out of you that it can get, either in open ways that you know about, or insidious creeping ways, because it needs to service that. And what is going on behind closed doors right now is that they are looking at ways of taxing the free equity in your own home. Now, they're not dumb enough to do that before the next election. It would just be, you know, the end of the end for them if they started making overtures about taxing the free equity in your home. When you sell the place, they want a nice slice of the profit. Or, you know, when you die and it goes off to your next of kin, they want a nice slice of that as well. Whereas it's always been the case that your home is your castle, and you know that is what you've worked for and what you've built over the years. And it's so sad now that we've got people coming up to middle age that have abandoned all hope of owning a home of their own. The carbon tax rate is going to be going up to 61 cents, and when they say that it gives you more of a rebate than you're putting in, what they're not doing is they're not taking account of the big picture, because the farmer is going to be paying more for his diesel to run his tractor and his combine harvester and to heat his grain and then to ship to market and distribute it all. And all of that extra cost in carbon tax is going to be reflected upon you as a contribution via your grocery bill. The Parliamentary Budget Officer has predicted it's going to put a $20 billion hole in our economy. Now, we all know that the reason for the carbon tax is it needs every dime that it can get, but it's using climate change as a reason. And you know, we're responsible for 2% of the world's emission of CO2. And China this year has put on 41 brand new coal-fired electricity plants. Now, who should be paying a carbon tax? Us or the Chinese? Now, there are technologies that are coming through the system which Pierre Poilievre wants to examine, whereby we can harvest carbon out of the atmosphere and turn it into something useful, so that we're not paying a carbon tax. This thing can actually be a contributor to our economy.
Who or what are the gatekeepers that Pierre refers to that are delaying home building?
If you're a developer or a builder and you've got a set of plans for house. I want to build this house. And you go along to your local government and you say, I need a building permit for this property. There's the plans. Rubber stamp, after it's looked at, that'll be $25,000, please. And then you go back and you say, okay, I want to build the house next door to it. That'll be $25,000, please. How come you've already approved this building permit for this house? It's going to be the same one next door. That is unnecessary expenditure for the person that's going to be building the house. When we reduce these expenditures, what we need to do is we need to make the house prices cheaper. We don't need to make more profit for the builder, and I'm sure that with competition it would translate that into cheaper homes. I've got a builder, friend, client and supporter who said to me, Victor, we are perfectly willing and able to build homes, and we could build nice starter homes for $400,000. About 25 acres is about the right size for a subdivision. And if you're buying something that's already zoned, it's probably going to cost you about $1 million per acre. So it's 25 million right there. If it's on the outskirts of town and it's still farmland and it's not been, you'll probably get that. You can pick that up for 100,000 an acre. Now, there's a whole room full of people that want to be sitting at the table with to looking at the plans. Okay. First one is the library. What impact is this new subdivision going to have on the library? Right. Then there's the police. Well, you know, we're going to need another 5 policemen with these homes on this. Then there's a fire, and there's also ambulance, fire hydrants, street lights, and you better hope that when they do a chisel plough, they don't find any musket balls or arrowheads or bones or anything. Otherwise, your 25 million can wait for 10 years while the archaeologists come in and do their thing. Animal. What effect is this going to have on the little critters that run around in this field? Your hydro, sidewalks, drainage, and it takes months. I learnt all this because I've got people who are prominent builders and prominent developers who are absolutely on my side and want to see homes built on the ground. There's no reason on earth why somebody that buys 25 acres of land shouldn't have put a sold sign up on the first property within 1 year.
Why is Canada so much in debt as a nation?
$150 million for Ghana, and for the purpose of helping them improve their agricultural efficiency. Isn't that ironic? At a time when our farmers are going to have to pay 61 cents a litre extra, $50 million to South Sudan to help those guys be more efficient in their midwifery and delivering babies. Do you know we just sent $25 million to Lebanon? The idea being is for medicines and food for the Lebanese people. Do you think Hezbollah are taking that 25 million and they're going to be spending it on food and medicines for their people? Or do you think they're going to be buying weapons and rockets to fire into Israel? What do you think they're going to do with the money? $1.4 billion a year for the CBC. And all they are a mouthpiece for the government. None of those media outlets are going to be conservative friendly. No candidate is going to get a fair shake from the media in the next election unless at senior board level these media companies sit around the table and think the wind is changing direction and so must we. If they started being super critical of the government, I would be the first one that would want to save them. But they need to turn, and they need to turn and get back to what reporting used to be. We want to know the facts. We don't want to know the spin that's coming from the PMO. We want the facts, and we'll make it, because we're smart, and we'll make our own minds up.
Why do you think that crime in Canada has increased so much, and what can be done to reduce it?
A lot of crime today is drug related. And what are we doing as a government? We're giving out free drugs, supposedly called safe supply centres, but as Pierre refers to them as drug dens. We are, as a government, drug pushers. And what are we doing? We're pushing hydromorphone as a fentanyl substitute, which incidentally is 5 times stronger than morphine, but not strong enough for their needs. And so they're taking that substance, which the government is pushing, and they're selling it to the drug pushers, and then the pushers are taking that government stuff, hydromorphone, and they're selling it to kids to get them hooked from drug dens very, very close to where high schools are. I think that all we're succeeded in doing is breeding a whole new generation of junkies. And this is where organised crime have got their new recruits from. I was a slave once. I was a slave to cigarettes, and I quit about 12 years ago. I couldn't go out the door. Have I got my cigarettes and my lighter, right? That's being a slave. Even worse is being a slave to drugs, because your slave masters will have you do anything to get your fix, and that's where the crime comes in.
What are your thoughts about the decline in the Canadian Armed Forces capability, recruitment, and morale?
I want to do what I can to restore the morale. This once proud fighting force that was respected and feared around the world is now a laughing stock, and I want to change that. As a veteran, as a proud veteran, I want to be on their side, and I want to turn them into warriors again. It's diversity, equity, and inclusion that's pervading the military, and that doesn't work. It's not working in civilian life, let alone in the military. In the civilian world, we've got different class structures. We've got the super wealthy class, you've got the wealthy class, you've got your middle class, you've got your working class, and you've got your poor class. In the military, you've only got one class, a warrior class. And when you start treating them with allowing them to perhaps identify on a Monday as a female, and then identify on the Tuesday as a male again, and then put in tampon machines in male bathrooms, right? I don't even know how much of this people even know. And then you buy them sleeping bags, which it transpires are not even fit to survive a Canadian winter. Their bulletproof vests are not up to par. Their camouflage stuff. And you'll find a lot of the Canadian Armed Forces now are going to like Amazon and stuff to buy their kit that they're going to need, their boots, because everything they're being provided with is garbage, basically. We could not even now be called upon by the United Nations to do a peacekeeping job, because we don't have the manpower and we don't have the equipment. So much of our equipment has been sent to Ukraine, and we haven't got anything left for our own soldiers, or hardly anything. So I would desperately like to restore the morale of the Canadian Armed Forces.
What can be done to increase the government's revenue without more taxation? How can we improve the standard of living for our people? Should we still be welcoming refugees?
There's no reason on earth why we should not be among the richest nations on earth with all the natural resources that we've got. We've got lithium, magnesium, cobalt, all the rare earth minerals that people are crying for. And also we need to get our oil and natural gas to market. We need pipelines. We've got deep water harbours on the East Coast and the West Coast. We need to be selling our stuff to the world, not just the United States at a knockdown price. We need to be getting top dollar. Then, when we've got our wealth back, then we can say to disadvantaged people around the world, we'll give you a leg up. Because this nation, and I'm not going to say it's a Christian country, but what I can say is that this country was founded upon Christian Judeo principles. And as such, we are very happy to give people that are less fortunate than ourselves a helping hand. But at the moment, we don't have the money, we can't afford it, we're broke, and we can't help them. But there will come a time when we're back on our feet, and we'll be more than happy to help you when that happens.
What's your views on immigrants to Canada, staying in Canada, and becoming a Canadian citizen?
Anybody that comes here legally as a permanent resident, if it is that you commit a crime, you will do your time, and at the end of that time you'll be deported. And not only will you be deported, but your whole family that came with you or came after you will be deported also. So that's what you've got to lose by committing a crime. If you're here as a permanent resident, you are not a Canadian citizen. And I would make it much tougher to become a Canadian citizen. I want to see 5 years worth of tax returns. I want to see that you're self-sufficient, and I want to see you speaking English or French and reading English or French. If you can't do those things, I'm not going to say you're going to be removed from the country, but you certainly won't get Canadian citizenship unless you can pass those tests. We've got the same thing as going on in the UK right now. People are saying we've got a two-tier policing system because it's one rule for them and one rule for Canadians. It has to be, the law has to be applied evenly. If you're shouting anything that resembles genocide to a certain group of people, then you have to be the one getting the knock on the door for hate speech at 3 o'clock in the morning, just the same as if a Canadian says something out of turn. So we're looking for even-handed policing, and I think just those few things alone be a great benefit in clearing up the crime that's happening right now.
What has been the reaction from people while you have been canvassing for the nomination, door to door?
And what I'm finding on the doorstep is that there are a lot of traditional now Liberal and NDP supporters who are on the fence. They don't know what to do, and they can see all the problems that we can all see, like with the scandals and with the amount of money and the inflation, and we got the highest unemployment rate in the whole country here right now, and they can see all of that. And they're ready for some change. I was only canvassing there a couple of days ago, and a chap said to me, "So where have you worked then?" He actually said, "I can never vote for anyone that hasn't done a proper day's work in his life." And I said, "Well, then I've come to the right house and I've met the right person, because that's me." And I explained, the things that I'd done in my working career. And he said to me, "You got my vote."
Where can we find out more about you, your beliefs, and thoughts on the important issues of today? How can we help you win the nomination to be the official candidate?
All my thoughts on housing, crime, gun control, the full 9 yards are all on my website. And they are my thoughts. They are not copied and pasted from the Conservative Party. They're my thoughts. And I would ask you to recognise that. If we feel that we're on the same page when you've looked at my website and we've got something in common, then I would ask you to join the party, because it is the membership of the party in Windsor Tecumseh Lakeshore that's going to be selecting who the candidate's going to be. It's not going to be the board of directors, it's going to be the membership. And it costs $15 for a year to be a member. A lot of people are saying that it's $15 well spent. It's an investment in the future of your country.